love the blend of science with food and that being so critical to just the innovations that you guys pump out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that gets overlooked and people don't recognize how difficult it is to create something that may otherwise be.
And that's all. Chocolate and pastry is all about science, and so and it's all about it's all about the technique, the technique and the technical aspect of it. Like if you're you can't, with baking and with chocolate, you can't just dump things in like you can as a home cook or anything like that, or just like a savory cook and be like, I'm gonna add a little extra this, a little extra that. Here, if you do that, you have to then compensate other things. So it's it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. Like personally, I love figuring things out. I want to fix things, troubleshoot things, and so that everyone has to have that mindset constantly. Why isn't this working?
Holy cow, to say that I am excited about sitting down with these ladies is absolutely an understatement. I'm a bit high from chocolate right now, just the sheer smell of it. But these are the ladies from Pizzelle's, which is one of North Alabama's absolute gems as it relates to dessert. So we have a treat for you today. So ladies, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for being here. We're excited.
So we've had a chat, a chance to chat just a little bit about behind the scenes at Pizzelle's, but you guys are, again, one of the staples here in Huntsville in North Alabama, and one of my son's favorites, as I've told you. But Pizzelle's is the most amazing chocolate and dessert shop that is based here at Low Mill. And you just do absolutely beautiful work. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
In traditional style, we've got some chocolates and some coffee cakes, and of course some mimosas. Too.
Yeah.
So I want to open it up, and you guys just and they're sisters, by the way.
Oh, yes.
So
I
know. So just to kind of share your story a little bit, and what got you into where you are right now, and start there.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure.
Okay.
So
I don't know.
we moved here in 1986, and we finished high school here, and we both worked in restaurants in different capacities over the years. And I was back of the house and I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy the people that I worked for. And then I finished college and did the college-y things and was a social worker and then was a technical writer. And
now your background is not one that you would envision being where you are.
Not at all.
I was like,
not at all. And I don't. And she did various kinds of restaurant jobs. And
all sorts.
School.
I know. I did a little bit of everything. I was just like, jack of all trades for a while. I did wildlife rehab. I worked in, hospitals or vet clinics or I did a little bit of everything, so.
And I don't know that either of us were, I never sat down as a 10-year-old and was like, I'm going to own a business one day. That was just never anything I really thought would happen.
I mean, I didn't think I was going to, I didn't know what owning a business was, but since I was little, I wanted a chocolate shop. I mean, that is what I really thought. I mean, I was obsessed with Willy Wonka. I was just obsessed with that whole thing. I sold candy out of my my lunchbox when I was younger. I mean
black
market. I really So I really I mean, I didn't know that this was what you could do. I didn't know that no one told me well, you love candy and chocolate this much, you could be a chocolatier one day. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's only on the movies.
Right. And so that's what I thought. But I really did. I was obsessed with it, and I really I would just have dreams, of visions of Willy Wonka-ness in my head, and so it was. To actually be doing it right now is kind of surreal, still to this day.
And what year did you go to culinary school?
2019. I graduated in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that
2009. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Correct, because your son was born in 2011.
Oh my God, I knew it had a 9 in it. Okay, 2009.
Yeah.
So I graduated from culinary school then, and before that, we were talking about doing this for years.
Well, we talked about how, we could own a restaurant.
Yeah.
I was like, let's open and we weren't serious. I was let's open a restaurant where there's no menu. We just cook what we cook, and you come in and you're like, I'll have the fish or the vegetable. There's no, sort of just
totally different
weird
than what
concepts.
you're used to. Yeah.
I mean, that's not that weird a concept. Other people do restaurants like that, but just to think of like, oh, well, maybe we would do this, or I love Italian food, and apparently that doesn't exist down here. So, so we talked about all kinds of concepts, and then at some point along the way, we just got really focused on chocolate. And
dessert, and having a dessert cafe.
Because also having worked in restaurants, we maybe didn't fully understand what owning a business was like, but we knew what it took to open a restaurant and to run a restaurant, because the restaurant I worked in, I was hired before it opened along with a bunch of other people.
So you were there.
So I saw that whole process, and I was like, well, we're not going $500,000 in debt. You know, it's so expensive to get a brand new restaurant up and running. So
and then not knowing.
How it's
going to perform.
And we're also both very headstrong and independent. So the idea of like, when we got down to the nitty gritty of it, the idea of like having investors and all.
Yeah,
I don't think
we've gone down that road a couple times just talking to people, and we were like, no, it's just us.
For us.
Yeah,
it's just us. So.
I don't envision either one of you having any sort of reign of any sort financial. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because there's some control there that a lot of people don't realize when you have investors.
Sometimes we make bad decisions or mistakes, or we look back and we're like, oh, I wish I had done it this way, which is, but
that's on
there
you.
are mistakes to make, so that's fine. But our grandparents lived in D.C., and we were up there visiting, and we were downtown in Adams Morgan, and we just walked by, the row houses that are stores now. And there was a sign that said something about chocolate. It was in one of those little basement, and it was tiny. And we went down there, and in 15 minutes I spent like $120 on chocolate. And it was the first time we had seen something that small, and chocolate's similar to what we do. I think it was Christopher Elbow's stuff.
That was the first time that we had tasted, like, not that we had tasted artisan chocolate, but that was like, the first time that we were like, wow, this is art. This is different than just like, like your general chocolate. This is, and
he was doing things like, there was curry or something in one of the chocolates, and we were like it blew our minds, like, wait, there's a whole lot more possibilities with chocolate than just put some almonds in it or whatever.
Right.
And that really helped us kind of solidify what we wanted to do. And right after like a year or so after you got out of culinary school, she was making stuff at home and selling it through a friend's very small gift shop at the time. And then when Killian, her son, was a baby, you went to the École Chocolat school. And while she was in École Chocolat, while she was doing that, someone said, we had already incorporated as an LLC, and a friend said, you should apply for space at Low Mill. And we'd been here for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we kind of, like, I mean, we know all about Low Mill or Flying Monkey, like we've been involved in the art scene here for many, many years. So. And
we were like, well, we thought that was just for artists. And the friend was like, well, they're looking for some business type stuff too. So we applied, we got juried in. Then we started talking about plans, and then like that happened in April of 2012. And then by November 2012, we were like signing a lease. And I remember because we ate it below the radar. And I was like, oh, we signed a lease. Let's get a bottle of wine. What are we doing? I was still working at the time as a tech writer full time. And then we opened in March of 2013, and just on this side. So that wall where the mural is went all the way to the windows, and we were only on the other side of it. We were just 800 square feet total, kitchen and retail. We could seat like 7 people.
Yeah. But at the time, that's all. That worked.
Well, and that enabled us to start it with no debt.
Yeah.
And so, like, the first 3 years, we were in the black, which is not...
That's unheard of for restaurants, especially when you've got your own real estate and building and all of that.
Our tax lady, that first or second year, she's like, well, remember how I told you weren't going to make a living doing this? I was wrong about that.
That's awesome.
And even it was going to be a hobby.
Oh yeah, it was going to be my hobby, like, because I had gone to school, and I really, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to make chocolate, but it was just going to be a hobby. I was going to make some things. She was going to come in after work, and it was just going to be like an artist studio, like we had grown to know here, where people just came in, to check out your artwork and then maybe buy something, maybe not. These are like little chocolate bombs. Yeah.
So are these like?
Yeah, they're little chocolate bombs. So, and
I thought it was a globe.
Yeah, but they requested their own their colors on there. So. we had like a line out the door, you know, the first day that we were open, and we were like, okay, I guess this is for real, you know, like.
Yeah.
And I took that week off work, and they knew why. And like we were consistently busy because we were like, we won't need employees for like a whole year. And I was going to keep my job for another 5 years at least.
My gosh.
And we hired Marcy the second week we were open.
Yeah. So
Unexpectedly?
Yeah.
Wow.
We opened in March, and September 20-something. Facebook reminds me of it every year. In September, I quit my job to be here full time, and we had already hired another part-time person by then.
Yeah, we were like, we can't do this without you. Now we realize that this is a bigger thing now.
Yeah.
Which we really didn't, that was not on our radar. We thought, oh, we'll be doing a bunch of wholesale and a few people will come in, except Saturday will probably be busy. And it was not what we expected at all. It was complete opposite. We did very little wholesale and mostly retail walk-up, which is still true.
It's still true, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, being at Low Mill, which is just sort of an artist's paradise here, I mean, this is such a perfect fit because how you guys design your chocolates and what you offer it's art. I mean, it's true art. I mean, and if you haven't been here to see what Pizzelle's has to offer, it's absolutely beautiful.
And this is her little cave over here now.
Yeah. So this is the background that allows you to kind of spray in front of, right?
Yes. So this is a big fan, and so she does everything over here. We got compressors, all of these. These are all the colored cocoa butters that we use. So those are all the colors. Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. So it's like paint.
It's like paint. Yeah.
You can eat it.
It's got to be tempered though, so it's got to be a certain temperature with agitation, time temperature and agitation, and then it will be then the right crystalline structure, and then she can paint with it.
Yeah.
So it's a little there's some science that goes along with with everything that we do, but with the cocoa butter.
Can I take a peek at what you're doing? Okay, so that's for just the outline of when you pour the chocolate in.
Yeah, so this is our mocha java, so she's just putting a little bit, so just at the very edges over there will be like a little swirly hue, that goes up.
Neat.
So when we built this space out, we knew that we wanted it to be like an open kitchen, which is kind of unheard of in the chocolate world because of the heat and humidity. We're in Alabama, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But we did want it to be an artist studio. We want to, for people to come in and see what we're doing and ask what we're doing, and can you talk to me about what this is, what your process, or before COVID, we would have people come back, into the kitchen, and we could talk to them further about things. And some of them need a little bit of extra help, but yeah, they do this when everything is in perfect temper. The temperature is okay in here.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah, how that plays a role.
Oh my God, it's a place. We couldn't do hardly anything yesterday because or for 2 days our heat was out and our air conditioning on this side was out, so we couldn't
Oh my gosh.
But the humidity is a big factor. With sugar cooking and that kind of stuff, we have to adjust temperatures. We know when we can and can't work with chocolate, or when we can and can't decorate, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If it's too hot, or
it's definitely a way that your customers can be engaged so much more so than it just be a countertop and everything happens behind the scenes.
Yeah.
They have a vested interest, and it just piques everybody's interest to see really how the magic happens a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it also too gives your team an ability to kind of share their craft a little bit
Absolutely.
of what they're doing, which is really cool.
Absolutely.
Really cool.
Sometimes I think that they would like a wall. So I'm like, no, I'm sorry.
Just pretend.
Yeah, just pretend. Yeah.
And I think it also, not that we have to justify it, maybe that's not the right word I'm looking for, but it also helps, our stuff is not cheap.
Yeah.
And we do get feedback about that sometimes, not a ton, but also the fact that you can see that we are literally making everything from scratch here helps people understand why it is not the same as the candy you're getting at the grocery store, or even getting Godiva at Barnes & Noble or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's been sitting in the package for a really long time.
There's anything wrong with the Snickers bar,
right? I love me a good Snickers. Oh my gosh, you kidding me? Yeah, but every single, and we've taken a peek behind the scenes a little bit, and everything is literally handmade and touched. I mean, which is. And you can tell, the intricate detail and just the flavors is so unique and so unlike anything else that that I have ever personally experienced. So it is fantastic.
And we have we go through like a several point, process before it goes out the door, just to make sure that it's, that there's nothing wrong with it, that everyone's happy with it, that, it's not, it's more than we could have ever, I don't know. I thought that maybe we would just make something and then it would walk out the door, but it's like, okay, I look at it. Is it good? Okay, someone else that's packaging, is there anything wrong with this? Then the next person, is there anything wrong with this? So by the time it hits there, it ought to be perfect.
Because if you're at the case and you're pulling, someone's like, I'll have a nutty by nature, and I grab it and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look right. I'll just set it aside.
Yeah, so everyone, the attention to detail throughout the entire staff, customer service also is pretty amazing.
Well, and that attention to detail is what has made Pizzelle so successul. And so, again, I mean, such a gem here that people know when they walk in the door, they're going to get phenomenal service and fantastic food, and that is just like to die for. So talk from a business perspective, what are some of the things that you guys learned, knowing this was not the original path necessarily? Mm-hmm. You have your dream, you have your idea, but actually making it come to fruition. Talk to us a little bit about like some of the things that you learned, lessons learned, some of the challenges that you've had, and maybe looking back, maybe, what maybe you would have done a little bit differently.
I said it at that first Innovate, when I was on a panel at the Innovate
Huntsville.
And they're like, what would you do differently? We were still just the 800 square feet. And I said, I would put all the electrical outlets in that my husband told me we would need. That was the first thing within a month, we're like, we don't have any outlets.
So if you need 10, just double it.
Right.
He's like, I think you're going to want one there. We were like, no, it's too expensive. And then, we're like, oh no, we totally wanted one.
Yeah.
I think our biggest, kind of overall lesson is how flexible you have to remain. Mm-hmm. And you can't marry your stuff till death do you part. There are some things that we love to make and we love to eat, and we discontinued them
because they didn't
sell for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Didn't mean they were bad. It's just not what worked in either Low Mill or Huntsville or Alabama. There's all kinds of reasons that people may not want to buy something or may not buy enough of it to make it make sense to sell.
Got it.
So I think,
and just like the original idea that we had for over here, which was going to be a sit-down dessert cafe with servers, with plated desserts and that kind of stuff, and that didn't work.
Yeah.
And so we had to quickly switch gears, and so I couldn't. I really was hardcore about wanting to make that work, but you can't marry that.
So let me ask you a question. I mean, so Low Mill is a very unique location. So you are not, right off of a downtown area where you're surrounded by a big park, something like that. A lot of people come here, but it's a very unique location. So do you think that has been a big part of that? As to why maybe that didn't...
I think so because it's not as accessible for say early morning coffee crowd or a late night after dinner crowd. Right. It's a very specific time slot. Yeah. And so we just had to kind of work within that.
Right. Yeah. Find out what, because when we first opened this side, she made croissants, but from scratch, which were, oh my God. I mean, in a way, I'm almost glad we don't have them anymore because I would eat one or two a day. And so it's a 3-day process. It's so time intensive. It's so labor intensive, and they were delicious, but because we're not open early in the morning, we were only selling 4 of them a week, and we finally had to be just okay, we got to let this go because it's not...
People some of those things that we were making, they were people associated with them a breakfast food. So after noon, they don't want to eat that anymore. And so there were several items that we just had to take away and be like, okay, well, what do people want to eat in the afternoon? Or lunchtime.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of every location has its advantages and disadvantages, and so those are some of the disadvantages of Low Mill, that it's not on a main thoroughfare. It's a little hard to get to. Yeah. But then the other advantage is the foot traffic that's here, especially Friday and Saturday, that we benefit from, of just people wandering around and then going, oh, what's this?
Yes, and you may not find those folks otherwise.
Yeah, right.
Here.
And I think too, from just the non-glamorous part of running the business is you've got to pull your numbers and look at your items and what is selling, because we're still so small that we know our inventory. We don't keep track of every single. We sold 38 Earl Grey truffles this week. We don't care about that because they know in the back how much rotation is happening and whether we need to back off or whether that one's selling like crazy.
Yeah.
But you still have to pull all your sales numbers, and you have to look and go, oh, I thought this item was, my
Was
perception
doing good,
was
right.
is that we were selling a lot of this, and then you pull your numbers and you're like, oh no, that's not worth doing.
And I will say, okay, the cookies. So we have had cookies multiple times, and they don't sell. They do not sell here. We have had, big, giant chocolate chip cookies, and
they're in competition with like the best chocolate
exactly.
ever.
All of these other cookies. Then we started doing these sablé cookies that are similar to shortbreads, beautifully decorated and that kind of stuff. And they still didn't sell. And there's a note on there that says, in my, we will never do, cookies again, Michelle, and I hate that because, for a little while they sell and then they just stop selling. And I don't know, but it ended up being a waste. So, every single time we made some, it was just more going into the garbage than anything. And I cannot stand that. We like to, with the products that we have here, we have very little waste or very little waste that goes into the garbage instead of into another product that we can reuse it, especially our chocolates or something like that. When we first got started, someone told us that, because people would come in and be like, so much money for chocolates or this or that, you don't have this. And, they were like, not everyone is going to be your customer.
Yeah, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
And that was a hard lesson for me because I want everyone to like it. I want, and that's okay. I mean, after this long, I realized
this isn't for everybody.
It's not for everybody.
But you know what though? I think that is such an important lesson that a lot of small business owners don't understand because they think they need to, please everybody.
Right.
And make a product or service for everybody.
Right.
And the reality is number one, you can't market yourself to everybody because that's too damn expensive. But number two, you've got to be able to really refine who you're going after and then perfect that over and over and over again.
Exactly.
Which, it's out of 100 people, if you've only got 10 of those customers, but they come over and over and over and
they're
over
better
again,
than someone that comes in
and then bitches about the price, right? That's not the customer you want anyway because you're setting that kind of quality service level to be expected, and not everybody's going to be down for that.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. And we're very niche, and I think one of the things that I'm glad, things like, if I had a do-over, what could I do differently? More outlets, but also some of the things I think we did right were we started really small and we said, what are we going to focus on? We're going to focus on chocolate,
and you perfect
we did not try to do
anything else,
and all that. And honestly, when this space came available, the manager texted me and said, the space next door, she's giving up her, her lease ends, blah, blah, blah. Do you want it? And I said, yes. And then I called Michelle. I was like, hey, I agreed to something. Ha, ha, ha. I'll do those things. I'll be like, well, I got to talk to Michelle. Or she'll be like,
but at that point.
That one, I was like, we knew we wanted it because we had that wall put in.
Yeah.
This was always all one big room. And there's brick on either side.
So there's nowhere for us to go.
There was no other way to expand.
And you can't go up.
No,
not on this building. And we weren't necessarily, it wasn't the best time to be expanding. That was not ideal timing, but we just had to say yes.
Yeah.
And what we've said from the beginning, and we haven't had to do yet when we open this space, is if the worst happens and no one wants any of the pastries we make, then we'll just turn this into more chocolate kitchen.
Right.
Because nothing is very few things are literally nailed to the floor. We can reconfigure stuff, and so always kind of, all right, if this doesn't work, what's the next thing we can do, or how
have some sort of backup plan always.
Yeah, I think that's a really great lesson. So I mean, taking risks, being agile, being able to make decisions pretty quickly, but also being very flexible. And I think checking your ego at the door a little bit and just recognizing, okay, we're good at this, we're not good at this is working, this isn't working, and being able to adjust to that really quickly. Yeah. That's a great lesson, I think, for any small business.
And that's one of the nicest things to me about working for yourself. There's some working for yourself is a slog a lot of the time, right? It's not, not sad that we're doing
it. But it's a lot.
So fabulous. But one of the nice things is that, when I was a tech writer, I worked for a lot of big companies, tech corporations and all that. And, to get something changed, especially when I was working on Army contracts, oh my God.
It would take 3 weeks
to go to the president.
Yes.
But we're you know, we're the presidents here.
Yeah,
So if
yeah.
something is not working, we can decide like that we are going to make this change, and we don't have to go through committees, and we don't have to ask people's permission.
Yes.
And yes, sometimes we make the wrong decision,
Yeah.
but then we can also course correct that pretty quickly. And that to me is a real luxury to be able.
Yes.
Of course, the flip side is that the buck still stops with you. So
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that too, you know, which is hard. I mean, especially as parents having families, and you know what I mean? There's a lot of pressure there.
Oh, yeah.
Which can be really scary. I think, you know, we do some mentoring for, you know, some local high school students who want to major in entrepreneurship, and they, you know, at first it's a real reality check, because it's like, I'm just going to stop you right there at the thought that you get to play ping pong every day.
Right.
And you drive a Maserati, and you've got a Slurpee machine in your office, and you get to work whenever you want to work. Because that is not the life of a small business owner.
Yeah, you mean working 20 hours a day, no matter what? I mean, like
no sleep, tons of stress, not making any money when you start, right? I mean, it's really, really hard. And I don't think a lot of people see that side of things, you know, so which can be tough. So talk about your family involvement. So your sisters being in business together.
Yes.
I would love to be in business with my sisters, but we would probably kill each other at the end of the day.
Well,
so
there's just the two of us,
Yeah.
and we're 8 years apart. So as kids, we were not super close, because between 8 and 16, that's a very
big
And she was
difference.
out of the house when I was like growing up,
Yeah.
so we didn't, you know,
she was
like
10, I moved out.
Yeah.
So there was. I mean, I wouldn't say that we didn't get along. We just didn't have much in common.
Yeah.
Because she's in high school and I'm finishing college, and you know, just that age gap. But of course, as you age, that 8 years gets narrower and narrower. But even in my 30s, if someone had said, you're going to work 40 plus hours a week with your sister, and I would just laugh at it.
Yeah. and we had worked at two other like jobs together, and we started the roller derby here
With some other people,
and
we helped start the roller derby,
you know, and that was
are you guys still doing that?
no.
I mean, it was fun.
It was great. I mean, we started it, got it going. I played
now that it's,
I played one bout, and then I quit.
Yeah.
So I got it going, and then I was like, it was so exhausting. It was so exhausting. So, but I am
fun.
so.
We learned a lot, honestly. Now looking back,
like business-wise.
we learned a lot.
Really?
And
I wouldn't expect that from different.
Oh yeah, because I mean, it was an LLC. We had meetings. We had. I mean, we really like
an executive committee.
Yeah,
We had all that, and I had
cool.
when I was a social worker, I had worked starting a couple different nonprofits that mostly didn't survive for
But
various
that process
reasons.
in itself is.
So I kind of knew a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
I know how to form an LLC, you know. But I think now, and I'm like literally just now thinking about this, with all the, you know, you get 30 women together to do something. It's a lot sometimes.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think with the tension and some of the headbutting and just the different things we worked through during the roller derby, I feel like that maybe taught us something about managing people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And how like people are like, what's the hardest thing about owning a small business? I'm like,
The people.
Customers and employees.
Yeah. Well, but you also learn a lot about yourself.
Oh
too.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, which I think that's a big part of it, you know,
yeah.
where, and we talk a lot about this all the time with our team about perspective, right? And, you know, you may be saying one thing, but she's hearing something else, you know,
Yeah.
and until you can kind of break down whatever barrier you might have there, which I think goes overlooked a lot of times in bigger companies. So the fact that you've gone through that process not only teaches you how to work with other people and recognize their strengths, but then also understand, like, okay, sometimes I can be a little too heavy.
Exactly. Like,
And
I mean, I learned a lot about myself during that process. But I think also it made it, you know, a real, you know, like we could work together. Like you know, like the communication style that we had together, and just like the dynamic that we had made it, you know, like, I mean.
And I'm sure there are still some employees that are like, Mom and Dad are
I know
fighting."
they do, like, because when we're hashing out something, it really, like, just the way that we're very loud, and so
You may have noticed.
so we're very, like, I mean, very passionate about what we do.
Very passionate.
Okay, so you know, we always get to the end, and normally they're like, you know, you guys are like fighting. You're not fighting. You guys are arguing about this exact same thing.
Like you're agreeing with each other. What you're doing. A friend of mine years and years ago would say, yes, these people are violently agreeing, and and you don't even and you're like, oh wait, I am agreeing. So why are we arguing? And I mean, we argue about stuff, but mostly I think it's talking it through.
Yeah.
Which we do literally out loud.
In front of everybody, and they're like, stop it.
That's stressful sometimes. Because people are the hardest part of any endeavor, is learning to, like you said, work with people, what makes them tick, what motivates them, and then what are you doing that is helping or hindering. Like, get out of your own way and get out of your employees' way.
Right. Especially as a leader and running a company, you have to almost, be more cognizant about that because of how you demonstrate and create the culture.
Right.
We had a front end person. She's still with us part time, but when she was full time years ago, I would like jump in because I wanted to help. Like, I'm helping. And finally one day she was like, "Please just let me do my job." I was like, "Heard." I'm backing off. I'm just gonna go in the office now. And
but you don't know that until she.
Because I was like, "Oh, I'm helping," and she's like, "You're just in my way."
And sometimes you got to hear that.
And a lot of times now, because our like duties are pretty well separated now. At the beginning, it was like, oh, well, I need to, I'm running the kitchen, but I also need to know how to do payroll. And I'm like, no, I do not know how to, I do not know.
This is kind of like front of the house, back of the house.
Right.
It was hard. It was hard when we both thought we both had to do everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we got into a lot of more arguments. And since that was the case, we're like, if I, sometimes I will not, she will come up with something and, I'm like, I don't care. Do whatever, or same thing over on, on this side. I'll have like this, okay, I really need to do this. She's like, all right. So because our roles are defined even more. Before it was like, I need to know how to do payroll. She's like, I need to know how to make caramels. And we're like, no, neither one of us need to do those things.
Can't do it all.
No.
That was hard to learn.
Yeah.
But as we grew bigger, especially after the expansion, it just became impossible to do everything. So I know how to make caramel, but I don't do it. She manages both kitchens. I help manage front of the house, but we have a front end manager now.
Yeah.
And then I do all the admin, which I'm happy. Like, that's kind of where my strength is.
Well, and then if you don't have that aspect, the company will crumble. Because, that's the foundation.
The company will crumble if I was going to do that, because I don't like.
And it may crumble if she does caramel.
Right.
If I manage the kitchen every day, we would not have efficient kitchens.
Right.
Like, that's just not where.
And I would be like sitting there just like zoning out at a computer, because I'm the least like technologically savvy person ever. I know how to check my email and Facebook, I think. But if I were to do payroll, it would take me all day long to do that one thing.
Yeah.
That is not not efficient.
It's good. Maybe there are businesses where families are working together and they're all too much alike. You know what I mean? I think ultimately having those different strengths benefits.
Absolutely,
us.
it does. Well, and I think for any business owner, recognizing what you're good at and then either outsourcing or surrounding yourself with teams that are way better at those other things than you are is what's going to create a really well-rounded machine,
Right.
If you were all great at payroll but not at other things.
Oh my God, then
it's got to be that really good balance.
Right. Right.
And I've worked for people who surrounded themselves with teams who told them what they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And it's a very frustrating place to work when it's like that. So, I'm not going to even pretend that I know what Emily does. Like, I know what she does, but even at home, are we going to bake Nestle's cookies out of a tube? My husband's going to do that because I will burn them every time. Cookies out of a tube. I can't bake those.
Go figure.
Yeah.
So is that why you don't serve cookies here?
No. She didn't make them. Right. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, obviously, the elephant in the room, in every room these days is COVID and what's going on with that. So being a small business, like, how has that been for you guys? And what are some of the things that you've been able to overcome? And how have you handled just the unknown variables have been thrown your way every day?
I still don't know how great we're handling it. No. I feel like the last 2 years have been a little bit of a blur, and we're just kind of constantly playing catch up and constantly, because things change on a dime right now.
Yeah.
So we used to know what our weeks were going to look like. As far as, what customers were going to come in, what production we were going to do, what this kind of stuff. And it's like throwing a wrench in the works, and we're just.
All those, our basic yearly pattern of busiest Halloween through Mother's Day, that holds, but the sort of weekly, and we're still always busiest on Saturday, almost up. But what people want, everyone is still so stressed out is what I feel like.
Yeah.
Even people who may be like, this isn't really a thing and we shouldn't be worrying about it, they're also stressed out because we've all been dealing with all this craziness for 2 years
And it's
now.
impacted everybody differently.
Yeah.
And it has.
Yeah.
And even if you personally aren't worried about COVID, like it's all around you anyway.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
you know, you can't get what you want at the store, you can't. So I feel everybody's stressed out, and our customers by and large are amazing. We don't have many issues, but I do think that people are so stressed out and frustrated that it's hard for them to understand when we're like, we don't have this thing.
Yeah.
We don't have many of this thing because we couldn't get graham flour for a while. There are no 8-ounce hot lids. You can't have them. They're just not available.
And honestly, like we have our core group of girls, but we used to have, a full-time pastry cook. We used to have a full-time confectioner cook. We don't have any of these things anymore. So we're all.
Or they have to be let go?
Just the staffing shortage. They either they left or they had to be let go. Or it was just like it was all.
Name the thing.
Yeah,
right?
name the thing. It just happened to same thing with up front. It was like the customer service. The staffing has been really, really hard, and so I think that's
and
we
kept
can't.
that
We're just
core.
all running kind of like with chickens with their heads cut off right now because we're all trying to do
And
double
you feel like
time.
you speed up and then the direction changes.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I have a plan. And then yesterday, right before we left, they're like, virtual school.
Right.
Huntsville City?
My
Madison County.
AAA was
Yeah.
And last year, during the fall, her son and our pastry chef's daughter were here having school every day.
Yeah.
And it was awful. And
So-
everyone,
It's so hard.
Yeah, they would. Because the kids don't. Whatever. I'll do. Whatever. It was ended up being. Where we're basically working half the time because we had to go back over here and work with them, and it was just. We were half school, half chocolate
and
shop.
trying to maintain, like we did in the very beginning, we laid off everybody.
Really?
We closed the day before our 7-year anniversary.
Oh my God.
The day before. We thought we were going to be closed for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we froze everything we could freeze. People took home the milk. We just got everything ready for a 2-week shutdown. And then it turned into more like an 8 to 10 week shutdown.
Yeah.
By the end of March, we had laid everybody off.
Oh my
but we
gosh.
kept having Zoom conversations and keeping them, and I had to talk to them about, okay, here's how your unemployment, this is what I'm doing, this is what you're supposed to see.
Because it made more sense for them to go ahead and get unemployment and for us to just shut the door, and freeze everything off. So.
And that meant not trying, because we didn't try to operate, it actually helped us.
Yeah.
It was right after Valentine's Day. That's a good money time for us. We had money in the bank, and we just sat on it.
Yeah.
I mean, we paid our rent the whole time, but and there were a few other bills, loan payments and all that, they weren't, some they forgave for like 5 weeks, not forgave, they paused it and everything, but that turned out to be the best decision for us, and we brought people back in June of 2020, and that was when that's when we applied for our first PPP loan. We didn't go after them, like, why would we apply for this money?
We're not
in
even
April
here.
when we're shut down.
Yeah.
We don't have any employees, technically have no employees, so I felt like during that time, those decisions were really, really, it was so unknown, right? It feels a little bit easier now because we kind of have a little bit of a past roadmap, but at the same time.
We didn't even know if we were going to come back. No one knew.
Is indoor dining dead for the next 10 years? We didn't know.
That thought is certainly out there.
Right.
For sure.
But in some way, 2021 was harder than 2020 because we were operating with a skeleton crew.
Yeah.
We hired a few more people, but we're still understaffed for what we typically do. Our hours aren't quite back to normal where we'd like them to be. We still have supply issues where things take longer. You just can't have it. It's just not there. And I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
We have to. So if that means we have to change a recipe or discontinue a product, and I think it was the things that have been harder in the last year is that a lot of people just expect things to be normal.
And they're just not normal.
And they're just not normal.
Especially for a small business.
Yeah,
They're
gosh,
just,
yeah. Well, and again, just looking at one aspect of the supply chain and how that, like you said, with the lids, and even paper products and those things that are an indirect support of what your main product line is. I mean, that's all part of it.
Yeah.
And spending money on things like masks and COVID tests when you can get them. And
or spending 4 times as much money on a paper product than you previously did, you
Yeah.
know, or
Yeah.
I mean, like parchment paper doesn't exist right now, like all that, those kind of things that
knew?
like, you know, like, yeah.
Parchment
more
paper.
full-size parchment paper.
You know, so
Yeah,
so I
that's
mean,
true. I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
I think that still right now we're dealing with, you know, the same amount of stress that we were dealing with,
Yeah.
you know, a year ago, and
Yeah.
It hasn't changed. I feel like the landscape hasn't changed that much. Some expectations have maybe changed, but we're still here.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
We had a great Christmas. We had a great Christmas last year. We're making it. Our core staff came back. You know, we communicated with them all through that shutdown and was like, "Do you want to come back? Are you okay coming back?" And
Yeah.
you know, people started back part-time, and then we had the flexibility with bringing kids here when that needs to happen, because what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the kids are here a lot.
Yeah. You know what? And that's
And they, you know, like
it is what
yeah,
it is.
right,
I mean,
right.
It's okay. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the environment that we're in right
Right.
now.
And not that we didn't take care of our employees, but figuring out how we can do more to keep quality employees. And I feel like we have a level of dedication and buy-in from our
Yeah.
employees that
Yeah.
is not always typical in places. Like they're very invested in our vision and our product and our whole what we do here, which is
Yeah.
awesome. But so how can we invest in that so that they want to stay, whether that means some kind of perk or
Yeah.
time off
Yeah.
or a raise or, you know, it's not.
And they're truly a
Yeah.
part of our family.
Oh,
I mean,
for
like
sure.
especially, you know, I mean they were definitely before the pandemic, but you know, definitely I think the COVID
through
brought
it
us a
is-
lot closer actually,
For sure.
you know.
Yeah.
We had to.
You bring up a really good point because a lot of the we have a lot of discussions just in general with a lot of larger corporations are struggling with that because they, you know, now more so than ever, the focus on culture is so important for, you know, retainment and sustainment and recruitment. And it's like, oh my gosh, now we're having to play catch up. So being in more of the corporate world previously versus being in a small business, what can you see now? This is what was lacking, or this is what is so important for small businesses.
I think giving employees some flexibility, just even around things like I need to leave at 2 and come back after a long lunch because I got to go to the doctor. Like your doctor's not.
And
gonna
not
see
being
you
like,
on-
well, you're going to need to submit a
because-
2-week request.
And I think that the other thing that large companies fall into a lot is not like they just make the rule and there's no someone abused that flexibility privilege.
So it's not tailored
once.
for individuals.
So they took
Yeah.
that flexibility away instead of going to the person who abused it and saying stop that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was something I learned from being in all kinds of jobs, nonprofit and corporate, is if you have an employee who is doing something wrong, you need to tell them about it
Yeah.
and give them
A chance
excuse
to
me, the
like
opportunity to correct
yeah.
it,
Yeah.
rather than just saying, okay, we're changing this policy. Everyone knows the one person doing the thing wrong, especially in
Yeah.
some place this small. It's not like
Yeah.
you're hiding something, like,
Yeah.
but it's hard, like confrontation, even civil confrontation is difficult.
Yes.
I get it, but
Yes.
I think as managers, that's just something you have to do, especially when you're small, is deal with that problem, give them an opportunity. If it doesn't work, then maybe it's not the right fit. And you know, like at one of the companies I worked with, we had a guy who read the newspaper for like 4 hours a day in his cube while we all worked. And it took them a year to fire him.
Oh my gosh.
Because again, of all those hoops, and I'm not saying I want to fire people or that I've enjoyed firing
Or you can't
people.
read a newspaper for that matter.
Right.
But yeah.
But it's like, just deal with the situation.
Yeah.
Don't make
Yeah.
this blanket rule that that now everybody's mad because their
so
flexibility
no
is
newspapers
gone.
anywhere in the, you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
it doesn't
yeah.
make any sense.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And that the money's important. Raises or bonuses or whatever you can do. It's harder in a small business. You know, our play is thin depending on the time of year.
Yeah.
But I just went in December. I finished the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program, and we had our final week in New York City, which was like mind blowing. And there was an HR session that we did in New York, and the guy, he was great, and he was like, you have to remember that your employees are not an expense, they are an investment. And I was like, oh, that changes the whole mindset, because I'm
Yeah.
always like, payroll, it's too big.
Right. Yeah.
But if we don't have our employees, then what do we have?
You have
We
nothing.
can't make all this
We have
stuff by
nothing.
ourselves.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
No, absolutely.
to really, not that I think we are pretty good managers most
Yeah.
of the time, and we do have some perks here. But for me to really sort of try to switch my mindset about if we give someone a raise or whatever the flexibility or whatever the other things we do, or we started doing paid time off even before COVID that started, which is not typical for small restaurants, but to realize that it's not an expense. I'm not just spending money. We are investing in the people that we want to keep.
Yeah.
And this is not an easy job. I mean, it's a fun place to work, but the work
this
itself
is very
physical and
demanding.
difficult. You're on your feet all day.
Yeah, yeah.
So how can you not compensate for that, but what can you do to make the fact that you're on your feet all day easier?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and realizing where some of those pain points might be,
Right.
I think too, as a small business owner myself, like you just lean back on what other people have done to try to influence, well, this is how I should do it, and that's not always the right case.
Yeah.
And so every business is going to be very, very different, and some corporate structure may not be the best fit for you, just based on your team and your industry and everything, which was something that was interesting for me to learn. And to your point, it's like, without our team, we have nothing.
We have nothing.
Right. I mean, I'm nothing without the team that supports what we do.
If we
and our
lose
clients
one person, like one of our core people, like there's it would be like which detrimental.
Yes.
I think that's one of my frustrations with some of the stuff in the Goldman Sachs. Not really. They were good about being this is more general, not general. Even like more specific with different scenarios and what they did, because they had so many different kinds of businesses. But a lot of the stuff that, I'm not picking on them, but the chamber or places like that put on for small businesses is that it's so focused on this is how you do it because this is how we do it in corporate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that does not work for tiny businesses. You can't, like, why on earth would we create this crazy Byzantine corporate structure for a business that has two owners,
right, for 6 employees, right.
Like
where's your org chart?
Right, yeah.
Like why? But a lot of the business stuff we go to, that's what they talk about, because like we said, that's what they know.
That's what they know.
This is Marcy Purvis. She has been with us since we very first opened.
Oh my gosh.
How long? Almost 9 years now. So, and she's our lead confectioner. She is also a chocolatier. They're both chocolatiers. They both went through the same course, the École Chocolat. And so she is like kind of everything sugar, but not
everything sugar.
But not just that. Like she does all the ganaches, like her technique on really every ganache, whether it's a slab of ganache or whether it's pipeable or whether it's marshmallow or anything like that. She kind of just like, she does everything, with that. So she's like the filling queen, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what are you working on now?
So
what are these?
These are mango patapouilles, which is a French-style fruit jelly.
Yeah.
And so it's basically just fruit, sugar, pectin, and super yummy. I actually have some scraps of the edges, if Michelle likes.
Yeah.
So this is ginger, and this one is mango.
Okay.
And they're both amazing. Like the ginger one is even got a little bit of a spicy
Spicy
kick
too,
to it.
yeah.
It's just full-on ginger.
Yeah.
I love ginger.
Yeah, we just take it's not like powdered ginger. It's like we just press out
Grate
ginger.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and do that. So, but yeah, and Marcy has a science degree, so that is like she's kind of our resident food scientist too. So she'll figure out how how different sugars work or how each ingredient kind of works with each other. So it's really
When you've only got 5 people on your team,
Yeah.
why do you need an org chart?
Right.
Because also, especially in kitchens, people do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
right.
You know,
Everyone
we
here
don't
does
have a
everything. We don't have
You wear all the hats.
right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Our team is the same way. Everybody wears all the hats.
Yeah.
And
Right.
just does whatever needs to be done. And if it's me taking out the trash and making the coffee, that's what I'm
Right.
doing that day.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, we talk about what, if we had to get other jobs, if all of this fell apart and we had to go get another job, what on earth would we put on our resumes? What did you do? Literally
Everything. Right.
We maintain equipment, we take out the garbage.
We mop the floors
But
or do the schedules.
That makes me think of when you talk about a job description of being a parent. or
yeah.
being like a stay-at-home mom, what your
Right.
job description would be, which, you know what I mean? And that is fascinating
Yeah.
to me when you really start to look
Yeah.
at what that is.
Right.
And oftentimes it can be very undermined because it's just like, oh, well, it's just this thing.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, let's really break it down and figure out what all of those,
Right.
those
Just
duties
taking
entail.
care of
Yeah, you're just, I mean, yeah, it's
keeping
just like,
someone alive.
You know, you're
Like, no
good
big
at it. You
deal.
just like, you know, just watch them and,
I know,
you know,
make
in
sure
the
they don't
crib.
die every
Yeah,
day.
I
Like,
don't
no
know.
big deal, you
Yeah.
know?
And I think
Yeah.
too, I get irritable with like you were saying when you're doing the mentoring with the sort of glamorization of you're an entrepreneur. And well, there was one year where I
Yeah.
was like, if I hear the word entrepreneur one more time, I'm going to throw something at the wall. We were like, we're not entrepreneurs. We just own a business. I don't know what that word means
Right.
anymore.
Well, and it's changed.
Yeah,
It's,
right.
And people
it's
use it.
created a
so,
new persona.
Right.
You know
It's
what I
just
mean?
so common. Everyone's an
Right.
entrepreneur.
And I think it's, you know, the influence of Silicon Valley and really what that looks like, where it's the facade of the fancy schmancy this and
Yeah.
that. Like, that is not, we talked about this earlier,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is not the
Oh, no.
reality of it at
it's
all.
not the reality.
At all. I mean, the very first time we hired an employee, the sheer thought of me having to put food on being responsible
Right.
for funding her food and
Right.
I mean, that was
Right.
the scariest moment of my entire, I wanted to vomit every
Right.
single day that I woke up. 'Cause I'm
Right.
like, oh my God, you know?
Yeah,
And then you multiply
you're-
that by however many team members you
And the other
have, you
thing we
know?
talk about a lot is, and they talked about this in many ways in Goldman Sachs, like how you value what you do. And you know, the first year it was hard to tell people.
Yeah.
Our chocolates, I think, were $1.85 when we started.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, they're $1.85.
Right. Is that okay?
We really appreciate hearing that.
And
Right.
now they're $3.25, and someone will say $3.25, and I'm like, yep.
Yep. And yeah, and I'm not going to make like an excuse, you know, any
No,
excuses, but that's
because
just
you
how
shouldn't.
much that they are.
Absolutely.
You know,
And
like
part of that is because we have 10 employees who
Yeah.
get paychecks.
Right.
And people don't understand that.
Yeah.
They don't.
And-
and they rely on us for that. I mean, like you know,
like
like
6 of them
I mean,
are like full time.
right,
Yeah.
right.
But let me just say, $3.25 for one of y'all's chocolates is nothing compared to what they're worth. So, like,
Thank
are you
you.
kidding me? They are the freaking bomb. They're so
Raise the
good.
price.
Right.
You heard it here first. So good, so good. So that brings me to my next question, which we talked a little bit prior to starting, but I guess first things first, like, you guys are amazing. Your story is beautiful, and I love the fact that you're like sitting here and sisters together running this business, which is just awesome to me. But you absolutely have built something so amazing and beautiful that our city should be so proud of. So
Thank you so much.
you.
I mean, but truly, I mean,
Thank
and you're
you.
in such a great place. I think that complements your funky personality.
Yeah.
All of the things that are in that office. I don't even
Talk about it.
we won't talk about that
Don't
right
don't
now.
bring the camera in.
I
there.
know, but so funny, so funny. It makes me love you both even more because I'm like, we share a very awkward sense of humor there, a little dark area. But what gets you guys really excited about what's happening maybe over the next year for Pizzelle's? Because there's lots of exciting
There's some
discussion.
exciting discussion.
We are
Yeah.
in the process.
Yeah.
Nothing's in stone yet, but everything's looking great on the handshake part of it. Is we're looking at a retail-only space right off the downtown square.
Yeah, and which we will
So
keep
excited.
this space also as production and retail here.
Yes. So I
you know,
mean, that
having a-
is
And
awesome.
yeah.
the great thing about that space, which we fully plan on opening in 2022. I don't know when, but
Right.
we're working on that.
Remember when we said we were going to open by
Like
Valentine's
by-
Day?
Oh.
We're like, wouldn't it be great to be? Yeah, that
We've
was
been
funny.
talking-
That was
we've
funny.
been working since September on like
Yeah.
kind of nailing down all the details, but then the holidays just ran over
Right.
everybody. So that and one of the big things there is that we will be able to serve wine, which we can't.
I know.
here.
Shut
We
the
can't
door.
have alcohol here
We
at Low
can't.
Mill.
We're in
so.
the county. The Low Mill's in the county. It's a little county island.
the
All-
annexing here is insane. Like, what is
Yeah.
that is
And
just,
so, because of all the county laws, we can't serve wine or liquor here.
gotcha.
But in the city, that's a whole different story. So
Yeah.
we, and customers have asked, whoa, you should have wine.
Oh my God!
because,
And
like,
wine and chocolate. That's perfect.
I
Like
mean,
we have,
we
like
have
yeah,
that
yeah.
here.
So
that's really exciting to think about,
Yes.
And the person that we're in the talks with to get the space is also sort of a Huntsville institution, very
Won't
fine
say it
dining,
just yet, but-
Right.
Like it's a perfect,
really top notch.
the perfect-
So it's a perfect mix. Mm-hmm.
complement.
So all of that right there, which we won't mention by name, like, I could just live off of.
Yeah,
Those should be my staples.
Right.
I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I think it's
those are my staples.
There
yeah.
are there 4 food groups? It's cheese, coffee, chocolate,
Bread.
and wine.
What about
and
bread? Yeah, you got-
I don't really know that you don't really need much else.
That's all going to be covered and where we are. And we are looking too, like y'all were talking in the kitchen earlier, and how we were talking about, croissants didn't sell and all that. And I don't know that we'll do croissants again because those are a lot.
But the thing is that someone else, Moon Bake Shop, does them so good.
Right.
You know what I
Moon
mean?
Bake
Like
Shop is
croissants are
amazing.
wonderful.
You know, so I don't, you know, we don't need that anymore.
let
We
them
need
do
to do
that,
our
and
own
you-
thing.
But
Exactly.
we can probably do some, because hopefully what we're looking at is early morning to late night.
Yeah.
So coffee, like some breakfasty, lunchy,
yep.
still pastry sort of themed things, but then also we're done with the symphony.
We're gonna come over
shows
for
so we're gonna walk over to Pizzelle's.
Yeah.
Plus the hotel, the Hampton just opened. Like all the hotels
there's so
downtown.
much stuff
It's so
happening right now.
perfect.
And this is what we really originally wanted, was to get that after dinner crowd, you know, and after the show crowd to come for wine and a pastry or wine and chocolates or a coffee.
But what a great environment to kind of do a test prior to that larger investment,
Right.
and not, you know what I mean?
The timing is perfect.
Yeah.
And also it was perfect because we found out right as I was starting the Goldman Sachs program. So I was like, that's the
right.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
There you go.
But
now you're looking at that program very differently.
Yes.
I would imagine.
And of course, downtown, even when we started, it'll be 9 years in March that we've been here. We were like, downtown would be so perfect, but it's expensive and it's hard to break into because there's not a ton of real estate down there.
Yep.
And now looking at it, like if we had an opportunity our first year to do downtown,
I don't know that we
we would
would
have been able to do it well.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you're absolutely
And
right. We have
You've tested things
almost
out.
9 years under our belt.
I think we can do it. I think.
Well, and you've built the brand that people
Yeah.
know what to expect, and they're going to rally behind that so much more so than it being someone who they've never heard of.
Yeah.
I mean, again,
Yeah.
everybody here knows who you guys are,
Yeah.
and they love who you are. And so, but honestly, I mean, there will be such a celebration around.
Yeah,
that
I'm just so
I mean,
excited.
that is
it's
just
gonna
awesome.
be.
We will be there with bells on. For sure.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh!
And it
so
just,
exciting.
and I think that it's going to be, I have a lot of love. I mean, I grew up downtown, all Spraggin Street, the skateboarders and the punks and all. I mean, it was just like, that was, it's just like right there.
There was
nothing.
So I kind of, so it just like, it would be right there. I'm like, oh my God. It's just like, it's kind of a full circle.
Oh my
type,
God! Well, it's such a great place.
Yeah.
It's just thriving.
She worked
and,
at Gorin's downtown.
I did.
Do you know Gorin's?
No.
Okay, so
Gordon's.
it's where the bottle is
yeah.
now. It was
Oh,
an
okay.
ice cream
And like sandwich,
shop.
so good.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it was one of the
Wow.
only non-expensive places to eat downtown.
It was so good. I still crave some things there. But yeah,
so good.
Things have changed. There's so much stuff.
Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. I mean, I love walking downtown now. I can't
Yeah.
believe it. I can't believe how much it's changed.
Yeah, I mean, it was nothing when we moved. It was lawyers' offices. And
Right,
at
right.
6 o'clock, it all shut down.
It
except
all
for the
shut
Coffee
down.
Plotch bar.
Yeah, right.
Still there.
Right.
It's amazing.
And it's like, and also having this opportunity has really, you go through burnout.
Yeah.
Even when it's your own business. And
You
after
need something to re-energize you.
8 years, 2 of which were a pandemic.
Right.
Everybody's ground down a little bit right now.
Yeah.
So this opportunity has really re-energized us. Even the staff that may not be working there.
yeah.
They're like, what if we could do this? Oh my gosh, downtown! That's going to be so amazing.
yeah.
So
so
it's
exciting.
been really great for
And
that too.
we'll be able to now, right now, as we talked about a little bit earlier, right now, with all of our products and stuff like that, we're just working on making things better, the best that they can possibly be, and then now we have this whole other mindset of new products, new pastries,
all those ideas that have
all
been
these
brewing.
exactly that have been brewing for so long, and we'll be able to really execute those. So I'm really excited.
Wait. Well, we are so excited. We'll be there 100% to support you guys. So that's just awesome. I can't thank you enough. And I know we've got some great B-roll of all of the amazing goodies that you have here. But your chocolates are absolute art.
Thank
and
you.
speaking with your team, I mean, they truly are. I mean, it's just I was like I said, I don't even want to eat it because it's so beautiful. What if you can give us maybe 2 or 3 secrets behind what you guys do? I mean, again, it is absolutely beautiful. How do you make such beautiful art out of chocolates?
I think
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Can you tell who's older? Yes, who's older?
You're like, yes,
I
Mom.
probably already told you. Inadvertently.
You're like, yes, sister.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Sister. Nobody says. So,
I mean,
someone
look at
told
that.
us about how, oh, I can just see how much you're so great together and you love each other and you make your candy with love. I was like, no.
That is not the kind of sisterly love that we have. Yeah.
No. I think
so cool.
personally, not in terms of the decoration, but in terms of how everything tastes, is that we really like complex flavors that kind of hit you in the face.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and the flavors that you guys incorporate are
Yeah.
insane.
We don't like some people are like, do you have anything that's just chocolate? And
we're like, no, we
Like,
don't
you're boring,
really
get out of here, you're not our customer.
Yeah.
We like to have, 2 or 3 flavors in there that really complement. You have 2 things and then you add that third flavor and boom, it
Yeah.
changes everything.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think that's our strength in
Yeah.
flavors is we like a bold flavor. We like it complex. We like more than one note.
Yeah.
And very, very interesting, flavor, combinations. Like this one right here is one of the ones. It's a depth charge. It's
Depth charge.
Depth charge.
Oh, depth
Yeah.
It's like a
It looks,
So
it
that
looks
is-
almost like
yeah.
3-dimensional on the top.
So
there.
that's a stout beer, nutmeg, and espresso. So that we use a straight to ale, stout of the devil, stout beer. So that's just in a nice dark chocolate. So it's really. That's just an interesting flavor combination. You can taste everything in there. Some things like hit you, a little bit more than others, but they're all there. Spicy.
beautiful. That is.
This is the one that I was talking about earlier. That with the sambuca, because I love sambuca. That goes so well with chocolate. This is Star Anise sambuca and espresso.
And who would have like that's just not something that the normal non-chocolatier would put together,
So I think we just love we just love playing with different things. This is a rosemary caramel. So, I think my personal love is like herbs and spices and herbs and how to incorporate those herbs into things. So lavender, like I said, rosemary, we have one with tarragon. It's just I love that. I love that savory aspect. A little salt in chocolate is perfect.
and I've heard coffee or espresso in chocolate too really helps to bring it out a little bit.
So it's not just sweet on sweet on sweet.
Yeah.
Because that's more complex flavors.
Yeah.
For owning a chocolate shop and dessert place, I don't really like sweet things. If you're like, here is the candy and here's the potato chips, I'll thank you for those potato chips.
Oh, that's funny.
But I think that kind of makes it different. Like that helps make our product different. Is that we're not I don't want things that are super sweet.
Right. Well, and two, you deliver the unexpected, which I think is part of who you guys are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're delivering a product that you can't get anywhere. Number one,
right?
It doesn't look like the typical chocolates you can get, but the flavors are very, very unique and distinct.
And we didn't know, is Huntsville gonna come
Right.
for this ride?
Yeah.
Because the year we introduced the goat cheese, we have the I Do Declare is dark chocolate balsamic vinegar reduction,
goat cheese and honey.
goat cheese and local honey. And we're like,
Oh
are
my
people
God.
ready for goat cheese
And they
and
love
chocolate?
it.
And we couldn't.
And we bring it back
we
every
sold
year
it
now.
as fast as we could make it. But our weird, it's not my favorite to eat, but it's one of my favorites that we do, which sounds weird, is the miso corny.
It actually is my favorite that we do. We only have it for 2 weeks out of the year, and it's just sweet local corn in white chocolate.
And butter.
And butter. It's so good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And there are people who just love it.
Yeah.
And it's really good. It's not my go-to, but I also like that we got to name it miso.
I love the creative process of what you guys take. That's awesome.
But working with textures as far as decoration and the insides go. With this one has a ganache, but it also has a smooth fruit gel in it also. So there's just layers of flavor in there.
Yeah,
So.
lots of depth. Yeah. Well, it's fantastic, and you guys just make such beautiful work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
so
for being
much.
such
Thank
staples in our
you.
community and
Thank
spending time with us today,
you.
and for having mimosas.
Yay! Cheers!
Cheers!